here we go. Just think of the price for a second there. Under $40,000 drive away, and this is what you have. It is genuinely remarkable how much value there is in this car. G'day, I'm Paul. There is an explosion of Chinese cars coming to Australia, and in the most popular segments as well, like the mid-sized SUV segment. One of the latest entrants is the Jaecoo J7. We drove the plug-in hybrid version of this recently, 1,200 Ks across part of South Africa, and I was pretty impressed with the fuel economy. Now this, on the other hand, is the internal combustion version, the top spec. It's called the J7 Track, is priced from $37,990 drive away, which is incredible value for money. If that is too expensive, the whole range kicks off with the core version, priced at $34,990 drive away. There's an all-wheel drive version of this coming as well, which we haven't driven yet, so this is just the front-wheel drive. For those that don't know, because it is a little bit confusing, Jaecoo sits under the Chery umbrella, and in markets like South Africa, Chery is basically the entry-level stuff, then it steps up to a motor, and then you have Jaecoo as well, but all under the Chery tree. Now today we are going to do a detailed review of this, so if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes that are on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below. Now, let's talk about design. I think that the Chinese design has really evolved. If you look at the Chery Motor 5 that we have here in Australia, it kind of feels like the previous generation of Chinese design. This, on the other hand, I mean, you could replace this brand with Audi, for example, and you would just assume this is a premium German car. It just looks so good here in person. You can see they've put a lot of effort into giving it a bit of character on the road and just not making it look pedestrian or like everything else out there. So LED headlights, you've got the running light up the top there, the actual headlight cluster down below. Big grille here. Now around the side here, you've got yourself a set of, what brand is that? Cooper tires, and that is sitting on an 18-inch alloy wheel. Machine finish on the outside there with a piano black in the center, some wheel arch guards there as well. Got a 360 camera here on the top spec with an indicator built into there. And then you've got this sort of two-tone setup, so body color and then the black through this middle section. Roof rails, these door handles, they pop out when the vehicle unlocks and slide back in when it locks or you drive off. So it has a nice sort of sleek look down the side there as you go. And by the way, in terms of the dimensions, 4.5 meters long. So around Havel H6 size, a little shorter than something like a RAV4. So gives you a bit of an idea of how big it is. Come right to the back with me. Now around the back, Jaecoo behind that little plate just there, J7 for the branding. Tucked in under here is the wiper for the rear window and a brake light integrated into there. The rear of the car actually just looks really quite nice and sophisticated with that sort of LED light that stretches along the top there. Fake exhaust outlets, but quite a sort of decent design. So let me know what you reckon in the comments section below. Do you like the look of this? Do you think that this is kind of turning the corner for Chinese design? Let me know what you reckon down there. Okay, so we are inside the Jaecoo J7. This is what the key looks like. You've got unlock, boot, lock, remote start, Jaecoo on the back there. It's a proximity sensing key. So as you approach the car, the door handles pop out. So that's how that works. And then once you're inside, you're going to push button start up the top here. Okay, so just think of the price for a second there. Under $40,000 drive away, and this is what you have. It is genuinely remarkable how much value there is in this car. And, you know, I just am staggered that some manufacturers still try and get away with charging this extraordinary amount of money for cars that are so outdated, whereas this just feels like you have kind of just landed on the jackpot if you buy it and you're getting this type of interior. So I think the Chinese are really good at that. It is all about perception. When you sit inside the car, you do feel like you're getting something that's worth double the price. So excellent job on that. How does it all sort of feel though as you start poking around? Well, it's fairly soft up the top there. This stuff here is soft too. Soft in the center and soft on the doors as well. They're really doesn't feel like they've cheapened out anywhere in here. Feels like they've kept with that consistent level of quality and that premium sort of fit and finish. So from that point of view, it's all good. How soft are the surfaces? We've got our gyrometer here. We've tested all the main surfaces in this cabin. If you do want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description below. Now, build quality. What is that like? A little bit wonky there in the center. Rest of that feels pretty good. It's what our door slam sounds like. I always get criticized for doing this with the window down, so here it goes. There's a bottle in the door as well. Now, let's talk infotainment. You know, I love my tech, and when I jump into a car and see this, I'm sort of pretty excited by it because it's got the key stuff I need. Screen ahead of the driver so I can see how fast I'm going, and then an infotainment screen in the center of the cabin. So unlike BYD products, this is a fixed screen. It doesn't rotate, so they've gone with the sort of portrait display here instead of landscape. So it comes with built-in satellite navigation. Decent feature to have because otherwise you are limited to having to pair your phone to use smartphone mirroring, but this comes with that as well if you don't want to pair your phone. You have a Sony branded 8-speaker sound system, pretty decent sound system, AM, FM, DAB, digital radio, which is pretty good. In addition to that, you then have smartphone mirroring that's wireless in the form of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So this is Apple CarPlay. Full screen integration there. Slightly laggy as you sort of whip between those menus, but sort of not the end of the world. I'll show you what Android Auto looks like. So there it is there, full screen integration again. It was slightly laggy as well, just like CarPlay was, but the fact that you're getting it there and full screen as well, I think is pretty decent. Now, I did notice as well, there is a hole here for a dash cam. So it must be an option that they fit to the car that you can potentially get through a dealer, but the cars that we drove in South Africa had dash cams fitted, and that's activated here through that control center. So also a decent feature to have just in case you ever need it out on the road. Head of the driver, you've got a screen that's just over 10 inches in size, gives you all the critical information, trip computer, etc. So a fair bit of sort of detail there as well. Now, on the safety front, you don't have an auto-dimming rear vision mirror, which I reckon is a little bit strange here on the top spec model. You do have blind spot monitoring built into the wing mirror though, front and rear parking sensors. You upgrade to front parking sensors when you step up to the top spec model, and you get a 360 camera here as well, along with radar cruise control and a lane keeping assistant. Show you what the 360 camera looks like. So there it is there, pretty reasonable quality, and then you can actually go to side views as well. They're actually quite decent quality there as well. So yeah, not a bad little setup. And this is what the horn sounds like. So moving on to practicality, and we'll start off with your connectivity. So down here, you've got USB A and a C port, 12 volts on my side. You've got a wireless phone charger here with a cooler on it as well. So if you do pop your phone down there, it'll pump some air into it just so it stays nice and cool. I think worse than a phone overheating. In terms of other storage, you can whack your phone in here if you want to store it somewhere, which is pretty cool. A couple of cup holders there. This center is interesting. So you got coin tray up the top, but it drops all the way down with an air conditioning port and a tissue box holder, which is a cute little thing. Down near the driver's knee, you've got another little tray there for your odds and ends, and a glove box down here that's actually quite reasonably sized as well. And have a look at this, little hook for your bag or other sort of bits and pieces. No sunnies holder, unfortunately. Let's talk about your comfort features. So you have dual zone automatic climate control with an air quality monitor as well, which is pretty good, an ionizer. You've got seat heating for your front row. Got a stack of settings there to pick from as well. In terms of seat comfort, these seats are actually really quite good. I just wish they were perforated. So unfortunately, they're not perforated, and you kind of, on a hot day like today, you kind of stick to the seat a little bit. But they do offer electric seat adjustments. You can go forwards, backwards. Your backrest can go forwards and backwards. You can lift the back of the seat. Unfortunately, you can't lift the front of the seat, which is one of the things that sometimes irritates me. I want to be able to adjust that. Steering offers both tilt and reach adjustment. Now, let's do a little reach test here. Look, it kind of works fine there. It's just that top part that's just a little bit hard to grab if you're sort of sitting in your normal driving position. Now, second row, what's it like back here? So knee room's actually reasonable, toe room's reasonable, head room's really good as well. You know, it's surprising for kind of a smaller mid-size SUV. There is actually a lot of room back here. Yeah, they do decent work with packaging cars on wheelbases like this. Really isn't all too cramped, which is good. You got seat pockets here with device holders, USB A and C charging, device holder down there, air vent back here. You've got electric seat adjustment for that front passenger seat, and then a center armrest here with a couple of cup holders as well. So overall, pretty good place to be seated. Window test, let's see if it goes all the way down. So it's auto up and down. Oh, look at that. Now, cargo space, let's have a little look. So powered tailgate. So in its standard configuration, you have just under 600 litres of space. Now, in theory, you do have rails off to the side here that you could lift this up to sit at a higher level so you can store valuables underneath, but it's too narrow to sit there, so I'm not exactly sure what that is. Perhaps there's an accessory available to sit on that top tier. got a cargo blind, 12 volts outlet, light off to the side with a hook here as well. If you do want to expand the space, you can drop your second row. And then when you drop that out of the way, it increases the space to just under 1,500 litres. Okay, so we've just hit the road in the Jaecoo J7. Look, this isn't limited to this car, and this is something that I've mentioned countless times now, but it is just incredibly frustrating, and that is the need to switch off all of these safety aids and stuff like that when you go for a drive. So yeah, basically in this car, it is lane departure warnings, the speed limit assistant, and the driver monitoring system all needs to be switched off because it is intrusive and annoying. And it is pretty much the same on any new car released this year or last year. And that is because government, they say that you have to have that stuff when ironically it's more distracting. But anyway, all right, so let's run through what this is all about. So Jaecoo J7 in this particular spec, front wheel drive, and it uses an engine that's going to be familiar, similar to the engine you're going to find in other Chery products. And not such a bad thing because this car doesn't weigh an incredible amount. It's a 1.6 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine. It's mated to a 7-speed dual clutch, and that's probably the thing I don't love about this, and I'll explain why in just a second. But first, just on the power and torque figures, 137 kilowatts of power and 275 newton meters of torque. It doesn't sound like a great deal, but I don't know, when you're driving it, it actually feels fairly adequate. Like if you sort of roll into the throttle and then just get stuck into it, there goes my phone, sort of pins you back into the seat really nicely. It's got a decent sense of urgency about it. And the reason I mentioned that gearbox is that it's probably its Achilles heel. You know, European brands have been using dual clutches for a while now, and they use them for sporty applications, but there are also economy benefits. So you're getting something like an 8 to 10% fuel economy saving when you do pair a dual clutch with a smaller engine like this. But the problem is that it just makes it a little bit laggy, ironically, even though they're meant to be quite fast. So when you're sort of just driving along normally and then you go to sort of bury the foot, you wait, and then it finally starts delivering everything. So I'm hoping that you know, they can in the future move to a torque converter. This is fine, it does the job, but it's one of those things you've got to keep an eye on and make sure you do a test drive because you don't want to be unhappy with the transmission because it's something you've got to live with day to day. Now let's talk fuel economy. So Jaecoo claims a combined average of 7 litres per 100 Ks. We are currently sitting on 7.3, so pretty much bang on the official claim, and that's after some sort of faster driving here earlier today as well. So pretty happy with that figure. Now sine waves time, let's crank the speed up to 130. Test all cars back to back in the same way, see what they're like here in terms of body control. So there's 130. Yeah, look, it's got a bit of float about it, and look, the Chinese brands, they've been getting better with their suspension tunes, but inherently they're typically quite soft, and in this instance it's got a softness about it. And it's not the end of the world. Like it's actually quite comfortable in and around the city, especially on 18s. I just think it's probably a little bit too soft for country driving like that. Could do with just a little bit more firmness, just to add to that sophistication. But we'll see what it's like when the speed picks up, because I'm curious to see how that relates to the handling. Okay, we'll head over to our bumpy road. So we do this at 90 Ks an hour. It's just a shocker of a road. It represents some of the worst stuff you're going to find here in Australia. And you know what? It's actually doing a really nice job here. Here's our condensed sine wave. We'll see what this feels like. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, the ride's actually really good. I think it is probably a tiny bit on the softer side, but it performs really well across this sort of stuff, which you'd expect it to be all over the place, but it feels very composed, and the ride feels fairly sophisticated as well, which is good. Okay, drive mode. So you got a little drive mode dial here. You've got normal, sport, eco. Pop it into sport. We'll go for a, thank you for confirming that. So part of the reason we test higher speeds as well is just to get an idea of what the chassis is like and where the inherent flaws are in the engineering. So see what it's like. The brake pedal feels good. Yeah, look, there's a little bit of body roll there, but it's actually managing itself really nicely. The steering doesn't have the best level of feel in the world. They've kind of added a bit of artificial weight to it here in sport mode, but the engine actually responds well in sport mode. Sort of has better response and just feels a bit livelier. And it's holding the gears correctly as well there. Okay, see what it's like on this faster section up the back. actually pretty commendable. It feels significantly sportier than the last Cherry with, well, there it goes with the emergency braking stuff when you just sort of brake really not that hard. But yeah, look, I think it's actually doing quite well here. It actually feels sportier than some of the other Cherry products I've driven. So I think they've actually done a decent job with that. I'd be curious to see what it would be like with the tri-motor plug-in hybrid version, because that is a whole lot of grunt, and I'd be curious to see what it's like in this type of chassis, because it could actually be some good fun if they sort of tune it right. Now let's talk about road noise. So look, there isn't a huge amount, but you will notice on coarse chip roads that you do get a little bit more come into the cabin. With that being said though, they've done a really good job in terms of isolating engine noise, because when you do sort of get up it, even though the engine is sort of doing 5,000 RPM, you don't get a huge amount coming into the cabin. And you also don't get a huge amount of wind noise either, which is pretty impressive for an SUV that sits quite high off the ground. So from a noise point of view, they've done well. This is how it went when we put it up against our calibrated sound meter. If you do want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, there's a link in the description below. Now, visibility. So I can see clearly down the front of the car there. Wing mirrors are nice and big with a blind spot monitor built into them. Visibility out the back isn't great. It's a very narrow window there. I think that could be a little bit better, but outside of that, it's actually quite a decent driving position. Okay, let's test the semi-autonomous systems. We do this at 70 k's an hour. We'll just see what it's like here out on the bowl. So we'll get that up to 70. Okay, so we're going to test in the 3 outer lanes here. So we'll start off with this lane. Seems to be doing a pretty reasonable job there in this first lane. We'll jump over to the next lane. Okie dokie, wait for that to engage, for that to go blue. Perfect. Good job in this lane too. It's actually holding us really nice and central there. Very good. All right, this is the hardest one, the top lane. Let's see how it performs up here. Wait for that to go blue. All right, that's blue now. Fantastic. That's holding us pretty central to that lane. Very impressive. Nice. Those systems work really well, which is good to see. Okay, let's do a little bit of performance testing. So put this into sport mode. And we'll see how it goes from 0 all the way through to 120 kilometers an hour. That'll give us out 80 to 120 as well. So here we go. Oh, super laggy off the line there. All right, so wins 100. And 120. Yeah, off the line, just waiting for that dual clutch to figure out what it wants to do, because typically, unless you have a launch control system, it just takes a little while for it to wake up. But let's see how that went. 0 to 100, 9.32 seconds, so reasonable, not amazing. 80 to 120, 6.08 seconds. So you can see there that I think most of that delay was it getting off the line, because once it gets off the line, it actually moves along pretty nicely. So yeah, I don't expect a car like this to have launch control, but it would be good for it to just get up and move a little bit quicker off the line. Okay, let's see what the brake and tyre package is like. We'll do a stop from 100 k's an hour. Okie dokie, so here we go. All right, have a look. So 100 to 0. 3 seconds and 42.19 meters. So I think they could definitely do with some improvement. Sort of anywhere between 35 and 40 is good. Over 40, not great. So I think they probably need to do a little bit of work on the brake and tyre package there. All right, how quickly does it go in reverse? Here we go. Oh, it's hoofing 54 kilometers an hour. Very nice. Okay, so Jaecoo J7, front wheel drive, what do we think? Look, I'm struggling to find other ways that you could better spend this much money on an SUV. It really has a great looking interior, loads of technology, plenty of punch when you need it. It is kind of let down a little bit by that gearbox, but I don't know, the rest is very hard to fault. Perhaps the driver assistance stuff, but that is common to basically any car you buy today. So look, I think it's excellent value for money. Let me know in the comments section below, have you bought one? What has it been like and are you enjoying it? I'm keen for your feedback. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.